Namaste. We are starting the second Sarga today, and many of you may have attended the first Sarga. Some of you may not have attended the first Sarga. So this will be like an introduction class, and maybe we will try to do the first shloka or two shlokas because this is a new course. And people who have not registered for the first Sarga may also have registered for this. So I would like to give a good introduction, and then we can move on to the text as such. Those who have attended the first Sarga, this will just be a repetition for all of you. This was the first two classes that I had taught, so I'll concisely try to fit in the introduction here. Okay. Namasundara Tasmai Halasya Vasine Chatushishti Vidhalila Yenakari Bhuvasthale Shrimat Sundaranathasya Devim Chaparalochanam Kalaye Hridaye Nityam Kadamba Vanavasinim Putam Swataf Putataram Tatoyat Gangampayash Shankara Mauli Sangat Tatpatu Mataf Pranayaparadha Padahataihi Putatamum Tato Naha. This text, Shivaleelarnavam, is written by Nilakantha Dikshita. This Shivaleelarnavam is a Mahakavyam. First, I will give you a brief about who Nilakantha Dikshita is. He existed he was born somewhere around 1580 because they calculated based on Apay Dikshita's death. Apay Dikshita was his father's brother, grandfather's brother. So at the end towards the end of Apay Dikshita's life, we find that Nilakantha Dikshita was around a small boy of 10 or 12, and he has received his initial learning from his guru Apay Dikshita, who also was his grandfather. So the time frame that we place Nilakantha Dikshita in is around 1580 to 1644. So the early half of 17th century. There were a couple of later contemporaries his later contemporaries were Jagannatha Pandita and others. So this is more like 1 minute. I will just yeah. And Nilakantha Dikshita is a poet from Tamil Nadu. He was born in Adayapalam, which is near Kanchipuram. And Adayapalam is where Adayapalam was the birthplace of Apay Dikshita also, and he lived in Virinchipuram, the surrounding areas, which is now very close to Chennai, probably about 2 hours from there in today's traffic. It's just before Vellore. It's quite approachable from Madras. And that is where his birth was, Nilakantha Dikshita's birth. He moved to Madurai because after his grandfather's passing away, after Apay Dikshita left this world, he went in search of a guru. So when he was moving towards the south, as he passed Tiruchi and Srirangam, in Srirangam, even now you will find a ghatta, which is named after his another guru called Girvana Yogindra. Girvana Yogindra was his mantra guru. And he got the Devi Upasana from Girvana Yogindra. From there, he proceeded to Madurai, where he served as the Mantri, Prime Minister of Tirumala Nayaka, for a brief period. And then brief is around 25. So his rule was 1623 to 1649. So, but it was not, he didn't stay there for such a long time, because at the end of his years, he left his job as a mantri and came to Palamadai and settled down, which is Tirunelveli, which is further south of Madurai. So these are the three areas where you will find a lot of descendants of both Nilakantha Dikshita and Apay Dikshita have spread all over Tamil Nadu. And in today's world, you will find them all over the US also. So the very illustrious lineage, the family has produced scholars of the highest order. Shivananda Yogi, if you know the famous Shivananda ashrama that is there, that Shivananda is also Abhay Dikshita's parampara. Many scholars have been there in their lineage. So the connection between Abhay Dikshita and Nilakantha Dikshita is, first there was Rangaraja Dikshita, and his son was Abhay Dikshita. His brother Abhay Dikshita, he had two sons. One is Abhay Dikshita and Achan Dikshita. Our Nilakantha Dikshita comes in the lineage of Achan Dikshita, his son Narayana Dikshita, and Narayana Dikshita's son is Nilakantha Dikshita. Is actually Nilakantha Dikshita also has another name of Ayya Dikshita. Just as Appaya Dikshita he takes off that name also, and he is called Ayya Dikshita. He is a Vyakarana Pandita, Vedanti. In the first Sarga, you must have seen a lot of these influences there. And Kavyam, of course, the amount of alankaras that he has used in his first Sarga itself is a small sample of how much of a Sahityakara he is. See, Abhay Dikshita has written a work called Kuvalyanandam, and it seems as if he has absorbed it completely, and in a very beautiful manner he is able to incorporate that dhvani and alankaras in his work. The first Sarga is usually a sample of how the work is. But that first Sarga is more of a satire, and it can be taken as a separate work by itself, where he ridicules the bad kavis and praises the good kavis, and talks about the plight of Uttama Kavi and all that, right? So he, even at the age of around 12, Nilakantha became very close to his grandfather Abhay Dikshita, and Abhay Dikshita gave him two books. Apparently, this is what is there in the Parampara Katha, and in the biographies that have been written on both Abhay Dikshita and Nilakantha Dikshita. He gave Devi Mahatmyam and Raghuvamsham. These are the two texts, I think, as a representation of one is Bhakti and the other is Sahityam. These two have to go together to have a, spiritually enlighten yourself and move beyond the material world, right? So next is his gurus. As we know, Abhay Dikshita is one of his guru, his first guru, and then he before he went to Venkateshwara Makhi, I think the third guru, the second guru must have been Girvana Yogendra. And he has also learned Vyakaranam and other things from Venkatamakhi. Venkatamakhi is our Melakarta, one who has devised the Melakarta system, the 72 ragas. He is called Venkateshwara Makhi. He has written a work also called Chaturdandi Prakashika, which is on music. He pays homage. Nilakantha Dikshita pays homage to both of his gurus. So why I have taken only these two shlokas is, but no shloka for Abhay Dikshita, is because in every text he mentions Abhay Dikshita. So if I have to write the shlokas where he mentions Abhay Dikshita, that will run to some 25 slides, because he's also done a lot of work, and in every work he has paid the homage to Abhay Dikshita. So the next guru is Venkateshwara Makhi. He says Vartika Bharana Grantha Nirmana Vyakta Naipunaha. This Venkateshwara Makhi has also written a work on, I think, Mimamsa. So Venkateshwara Makhi Shishye Mayi Anukampate. This is found in Gangavataranam. Gangavataranam has a description of the entire lineage of Abhay Dikshita till Nilakantha Dikshita. He gives a description of that and goes on to talking about his guru also in the first Sarga. Here in this Shivaleelarnavam, in the earlier Sarga, we saw how he spoke about his mantra guru, Girvana Yogendra. Ardhe tanoho adri suta mayo asmi iti aham yunakim phalamadiyuna Girvana Yogendram upasmahe tam sarvatmana shailasutatmakaha. So Shiva is very proud that half of his body is Parvati. But I would like to, offer my salutations only to Girvana Yogendra, who is completely of Devi. who is made of Shaila Sutta Atmakaha Sarvatmana. So that shows how his guru was also a great Devi Upasaka, and how he has imbibed that Devi Upasaka in him also. You will find works like Anandasagarastavam very beautifully bring out that side of Nilakantha Dikshita. So there are a lot of works that he has written. Some are not printed, some are manuscripts, some are just, if you look at it like Gangavataranam or even Shivaleelarnavam, you will find just a bare, simple edition of the text initially. And in recent times, people have started writing translations for it. He has written a champu called Nilakantha Vijaya Champu. It talks about the Samudra Mathanam and how Shiva appears in front of them and says, "Don't worry, I will take the Visham." And that entire scene has been described beautifully in 5 Ashwasas in the Champu called Nilakantha Vijaya Champu. And that is a masterpiece, according to me. The 4th act, the 4th Ashwasa there, describes the plight of Vasuki when he is trying to churn the mountain. And it goes in a very beautifully rhythmic way to describe how they are, struggling and Shwasadikam Kritva Tatra Katham Evam Kriyate. The torture that the Vasuki goes through is beautifully described even in the words that he uses and the rhythm with which he uses a Gadyam there. So he's a master. To write Champu is very difficult. You can either be a Gadya expert or a Kavyam expert, meters and everything. To do both together in Champu, you have to be an expert in both Gadya and Padyam. So Champu is like the probably the final attempt of any Kavi. Natakam, you need that, let's say, a look of, how the dialogues will be, how it will be when you present it on stage. You should have that vision to write a Natakam. This requires more of an expertise in the language also, and Sahitya Shastra. So he has tried his hand at, very successfully too, he has tried his hand at Mahakavyam, Natakam, Champu, a lot of Vedanta Kavyams also. Vedanta Kavyam, I've mentioned Anandasagarastavam as a Vedanta Kavyam. It is more like a Bhakti Kavyam there, where there is an ultimate surrender to goddess Meenakshi. He stayed in Madurai, and so he was completely enamored by Devi there. The presence of Devi is very high in Madurai. This entire Kavyam is in and around Madurai. All of the 64 Leelas that Shiva did is in and around Madurai. It has a very special vibe. Only people who have lived in Madurai or even visited Madurai frequently will understand that vibe that is there in Madurai. It's one must at least visit it once in a lifetime. It's a great experience to go to Madurai. And this Anandasagarastavam is on goddess Meenakshi. Shanti Vilasam, he has written another Vairagya Shatakam. His grandfather has also written one. I think he has also written a Vairagya Shatakam. Of course, Bhartrihari has another Vairagya Shatakam. His satire works are something that is brilliant. The Kali Vidambanam and Savaranjana Shatakam, more than Savaranjana Shatakam, the Kali Vidambanam is something that you can, in your free time, you can keep reading it and laughing to yourself. People will think you're mad, but that's different. But he's got a way with words, and he brings out situations in a very beautiful manner, and you will look at people even today and laugh, because Nilakantha Dikshita could predict what would happen later. Probably this was the same thing that was happening then also. So you can associate yourself really well with Kali Vidambanam. He is actually mocking the people in Kali Yuga. Yeah. And there are a couple of Bhakti Kavyams also. The manuscripts and printed works that I have given, some are attributed to him, some are not attributed to him. Some works are not available. They were printed at some point by the family and the descendants of the family. Today you have, in some places, you have the 14th or 15th descendant of Nilakantha Dikshita. So they have tried to keep up and keep the printing, at least, to have the books available for people. Yet it's not as popular as other Kalidasa works. Kalidasa, who lived long time back, and still people are looking at it. These, I think, Nilakantha Dikshita still has to, people have to know him more to understand the value of his work. Now, the Grantham, that is your introduction for the Kavi. This Grantham, Shivaleelarnavam, it describes the Shivasya Leelaha. You might have heard of Tiruvilayadal in Tamil. Tamil Nadu people are very popular with that, know really well. In Telugu also, you have this Chokkanada Charitramu. There is also a Kannada version of this Tiruvilayadal, which talks of the divine sports, divine Leela, plays of Shiva. Lord Shiva has never taken an avatara as such. If you see, Vishnu has taken an avatara, he takes a janma and then lives a life until his ripe old age and goes back to Vaikunta. We have seen Purnavatarams of Vishnu, whereas we have not seen Purnavataras of Shiva or Brahma for that matter. The reason being, see, Vishnu is the Sthitikarta. He is responsible for Sthiti. So he is like, my sir would say this very beautifully. He would say, he is like the current prime minister or president. You will find his presence more than the past prime minister or the future prime minister. Right? The past prime minister, his work is done. He has done his Srishti and he is gone. Brahma is not there anymore. The one who is going to come in the future is during Pralayam. So his role is also not so necessary. He will appear once in a while in some function to just cut the ribbon and go away. That's it. But then the one whose face is always there on the newspapers is the current prime minister. Right? So that is how we have Vishnu's avataram always and Purna avataram too. So Shiva appears once in a while and then shows his presence and goes away. Those are his leelas. There are many different leelas that have happened in and around Madurai, and when the Pandyas were ruling. Yeah. Now the moolam for this Shivaleelarnava, the vyutpatti for the word Shivaleelarnavam, Shivasya Leelaha eva Arnavaha Samudraha. The divine sports of Shiva is like a samudram, and tam adhikritya kritam kavyam iti Shivaleelarnavam. There are about 1998 shlokas in this. Roughly there are about 80 to 90 shlokas per sarga. In the first sarga, we saw 81. The second sarga is also going to have 81 shlokas. The original, we don't know from where Shivaleelarnava author Nilakantha Dikshita has taken it from. There are several texts that could have been a source. See, today, when we want to talk about Shiva or we want to talk about any concept, we have a repository of, say, 10-12 books. We don't know now someone who is reading, if I have not given my source text at all, if I don't give a bibliography for my text, for my book that I'm writing, then nobody will know what my source texts are. We just try to guess and assume what could have been his source text. So there is one in Sanskritam, which is in Skanda Puranam, which is part of Skanda Purana. It is in Skanda Puranam, you have Shankara Samhita. And within Shankara Samhita, you have Agastya Samhita, where there are about 71 adhyayas covering about 6,300 shlokas. This section is called Halasya Mahatmyam. Halasyam is the name given to Madurai. Hala is a sarpa, a serpent, and Asyam is its mouth. When Madurai was submerged during one floods, Pralayam. It was almost like a Pralayam and completely things were merged. Only the temple was standing there, and Sundarabandyan was the king who took all of the subjects and went into the temple and stood there. Once all the floods went down, after 3 days, he did not know what the Parisaram, that is the border of that country was. So for that, Shiva, Parameshwara himself, took out his Nagabharanam and asked that Naga to mark out the boundary. So this Nagam took the form of a Naga Devata, took the form of a serpent, and he took his the tail into his mouth. So it became a Valayam. A snake which is long, it took its own tail in its mouth and then started growing. So the snake was actually only a abharanam, like a bangle for Shiva, and it just started growing bigger and bigger to form the parisaram, the boundary of Madurai. So that is why it's called Halasyam, and it's also called Halasya Kshetram. The Mahatmyam of that Kshetram is given in 71 Adhyayas in Skanda Purana, from where you get that is the Moolam Bijam in Sanskritam for Shivalila, the 64 Leelas, Tiruvilayadal of Shiva. Now, Puranas, there is an issue with the dating of Puranas. We don't know when, what, whether the Puranas existed before they were in the written form, whether it is an oral tradition. So we don't know when it came into existence as a book form, as a written form, as a final text. Okay. So that is the issue why I have not given any date for that. Now, other things that also came about during that time and right before Nilakantha Dikshita's time is, one is the Thiru Alavayudayar Tiruvilayadal Puranam by Perumbutri Puliyur Nambi. This was in 13th century. This was the first work that was written about the Tiruvilayadals of Shiva. The next came Paranjoti Munivar, who expanded this Perumbutri Puliyur Nambi's work and made it into a bigger work in the 16th century. He also gave it almost the same name, and he called it Tiruvilayadal Purana. It gained an expansive state at that point. There is also another work by Anadariyappan. The time is not known for him. Anadariyappan wrote Sundarapandiyam, which is another work, because all of these 64 Leelas happened during, in and around, or up before and after Sundarapandyan's time frame, King Sundarapandyan's time frame. There is one more work by Thiruvengalakavi in Telugu, which is called Chokkanada Charitramu, which was also written in 16th century. Now, our Nilakantha Dikshita had or did not have access to all of these, we don't know. Now, during the same 17th century, 1 century later, we have this Shivaleelarnavam, which is also a great work as comparable to the Tamil Tiruvilayadal Purana. Many places he uses the same. I'm assuming he must have seen this, because some of the Chayyul that are there in Paranjoti Munivar's work are used. He has not changed even the concept, and he has used it directly in his work in Shivaleelarnavam. In later Sargas, you will find that. This second Sarga that we are going to talk about, it has the Varnana of Pandya Raja and Pandya Rajyam. Pandyadesha. It has about 82 shlokas. The Vrittam is just as before. You have Indravajra, Upendravajra, and Upajati. These were the 3 Vrittams that were meters that were used in the first Sarga. And he also follows the same pattern, where the last shloka changes. In a Mahakavyam, the Lakshanam is such that you will have to change the ending shloka, at least the ending shloka, to a different meter to show the transition. See, in those days, why that was there is because in those days, the moment you write a kavyam, you don't say Atha Dvitiya Sargaha or Atha, as long as you are reciting in front of a king, in his sabha, in his darbar. So when you are reciting in front of him, you are continuously reading that shlokas, and everybody will know you are still in that particular description and that particular sarga. The moment there is a change in meter, maybe it was an interval time for everybody, I don't know. Probably that is why they wanted a change in the meter, and they could go to a different meter in the second sarga if they want. But here, Nilakantha Dikshita prefers to maintain the same metrical pattern that he adopted in the first sarga. So here also you will find Indravajra, Upendravajra, Upajati, and then finally Shardula Vikritam. So one thing I wanted to go with this, try to explain this meter, which is Yamata, Raja, Bha, Nasa, Laga. These are the Yagana, Magana, Tagana, Ragana. These are the ganas which you base on trying to find out how the meters work, the chandas works in kavyams. So one is, this is like a formula that you have to understand how the Laghu Guru work. Laghu is a short vowel here, so that is a U here. I'll change the color, it's not visible at all. Okay, so Ya, and then Ma is a Dirgha letter, so it is a Guru. It is considered as Guru. This is also considered as Guru. A Hraswa letter, if you find Ya, Kuril, that is that letter which is Hraswam, yet it is, if it is followed by a Sanyuktakshara, if there is a Samyuktakshara, then this Laghu turns into Guru. You consider it as Guru. This is how you analyze each and every meter to find out what are the ganas in those meter. And then there is a metrical lakshanam, definition for each meter. You apply that definition and find out what meter that is. As you try to do it for 2-3 shlokas, you will understand the flow of the meter, and the moment you start reading itself, you will understand what meter that is. For example, Indra Vajra, the first shloka in this Sargam is in Indra Vajra. He followed the same pattern in the first Sarga also. The first shlokam, which we read as a Mangala shlokam, Putam Swataf, Putataram Tatoya, Gangam Vayashankara Mauli Sangata, that is also in Indra Vajra. Later he changes to Upajati. Mostly it is Upajati or Indra Vajra. Upendra Vajra is very rare to find. So Indra Vajra is Syad Indra Vajra Yadi Tau Jagau Gaha. So Tau indicates that there should be a Tagana first, 2 Taganas. Dvivachane vartate dikaranata tatra Tagana dvau. And then you'll have a Jagana, and then this Ga and Ga represent 2 Gurus. So Jagana and 1 Guru, and then another, followed by another Guru. So this is how you analyze. You will find there are 2 padas here and then 2 padas here. Astik Kshiter Ambaram Astik Kshiter Abharanayamanaha Pare Samudram Sahi Pandyadesha. So there is a stop here, which means these will form Tau Jagau Gaha. That's how you will have to arrange. If you look at the Tagana, 1 minute, where is that? The Tagana here is Guru, Guru and Laghu, right? So if you follow that pattern, you will find Asti here, even though A is Hraswam, it is taken as Guru because it is followed by a Sanyuktakshara, and hence this becomes a Guru. Asti Kshiti, the same follows here. Ti is Hraswam and it is followed by a Sanyuktakshara, so this is also a Guru. And Kshitehe, so Kshi is a Hraswam, so this becomes a Laghu. This is 1 Gana. This is how you start counting the vowels and finding out whether it is a Laghu or a Guru. Okay. Based on that, you will find that most of the shlokas here are in Indra Vajra or Upajati. Upajati is a combination of Upendra Vajra and Indra Vajra. The second shloka, you'll find that it is in Upajati, where you start off, a simple indication of that would be, if the first letter is Guru, then it is an Indra Vajra. If the first letter is Laghu in that pada, then it is Upendra Vajra. If you have a combination of Indra Vajra and Upendra Vajra, it is Upajati. Okay. This is a very simple explanation. How can we easily find all these things? Practice. That's the only way you can find out. You just randomly take up shlokas. You see whether you can identify the meters and try to go from there. Okay. We'll start with the first shloka today. Asti Kshiter Abharanayamanaha Pare Samudram Sahi Pandyadesha Asham Agasthyadhyushitam Gatopi Sarvottaro yo jagati pratitaha. The Prabandham, he starts the work, which is the Prabandham, from this Sarga. The earlier Sarga was just an introduction, like a prologue. It was an introduction for all of us to understand and to how to view Nilakantha Dikshita. So he is a good Kavi. Don't look at him with a lot of, trying to find out where is the mistake and all that. Try to justify him as much as possible. He may have made mistakes, we don't know. Or those mistakes can be justified at some way or the other. We will try to do that and not try to look at only the doshas. So that was the learning from the first Sarga that we have taken. Now in this second Sarga, he starts off with a description of Pandyadesha. This will go on for about 24 shlokas. Everywhere you will find the Yat Shabda, which is indicative of either Pandyadesha or something that is present inside the Pandyadesha, which is either a mountain or the Tamrabarani river or the people who are living there. So it's a 24 shlokas he spends on describing the Pandyadesha. Very similar to Kumarasambhavam. In the first shloka, he will start off with Asti Uttarasyam Dishi Devatatma Himalayo Namanagadhirajaha Purvaparavotoya Nidhi Vagahya Sthitav Prativya Iva Manadandaha. That is just Asti Uttarasyam Dishi. Here also Asti Kshitera Bharanaya Manaha. And he also has to mention the Dik, which is the southern direction. To mention that the Pandyadesha exists in the south, he says, Asham Agastya Adhyushitam Gataha Api. Agastyaha Yasyam Ashayam Adhyushita Itikte Ushitaha. He was staying. Vasastalena Swikritam Disham Dakshinam Disham Gataha Api. So he has mentioned the Dik also. As a comparison to Kalidasa's first shloka in Kumarasambhavam, Asti Uttarasyam Dishi Devatatma Himalayo Nama Nagadhirajaha. So here you have Sahi Pandyadesha. Devatatma iti tatra uttam. So here also he is going to say Sarvottaraha. He is this Pandyadesham Jagati Sarvottaraha iti pratitaha. It is known as the greatest of all. Then the second line in Kumarasambhavam, if you see, Toyanidhi Vagahya Sthitav Prativya Iva Manadandaha. Prativyaha Manadandaha Iva Sthitaha. Here Kshitehe Abharanaya Manaha. Bhumi. With reference to the Bhumi also he has to make a connection to the Bhumi. So there he said the Himalayas is like a the Tolanam scale where it is trying to judge or gauge the earth completely. Manadandaha. Tatha, it is extending towards the eastern and the western Samudram. The Himalayas extends to both sides of the Samudram and it acts as if it is a Manadanda where it is trying to measure the entire Bhumi. Here also he is bringing in that Bhumi here by saying Kshitehe Bhumehe Abharanam iva acharati Abharanaya Manaha. Tatra abharanayate iti, it is a kyach pratyaya where you have upamanat achare. So when you have an upamanam, which is the abharanam, abharanamiva acharati. This Pandyadesham is like a abharanam. So abharanam is the upamanam, Pandyadesha is your upameya. Abharanamiva acharati. You put another pratyaya there and say abharanayate. And you want it in continuous tense, you use, because it is an Atmanepadi, you use Shanach Pratyaya. So, Kritehe Abharanayamanaha, that which behaves like the jewel. It is like an ornament of the earth. Now, again, comparison to Kumarasambhavam, he says, Purva Parau Toyanidhi Vagahya. The Himalayas extends up to the eastern and the western Samudram. Here also he says, Pare Samudram. Samudrasya param. Samudrasya pare vidyate. Pare ityukte samudra paryantam tasya. Param is actually tiram. So samudrasya tiram, pare samudram. There is another sutra also. He uses some 3 sutras in this one first shloka. Okay, so I'll have to go into grammar. There's no other point, even though it's not my forte, but otherwise, So samudrasya pare tire pare madhye shashtyava iti sutrena. There it is an avyayi bhava samasa, where the meaning is it extends up to the ocean's shores of the ocean. Right? So Pare Samudra, to show the extent of Pandyadesha. Now we think of, in Tamil history, we always talk of the Cholas in a very great way. But Pandyas existed even in the Ramayana age and Mahabharata age also. In the Ramayana Krishkinda Kandam, you will find a mention of Pandyas where, when Sugriva sends all the monkeys, Vanaras, to find out Sita, he says one section went to the Pandyas to find out whether they were there. Even in Mahabhashyam. So Panini's time also you have this. Vartikakara's time you have the word Pandya. Not in Panini's Ashtadhyayi you will not find this. You will find this as a Vartikam, and in Mahabhashyakara time that they knew about a desham called Pandu, and not Pandu as in Arjunasya pita athava Yudhishthira Pandavanam pita Panduhu iti na Panduhu iti kaschana desha visheshaha asit tasmat Pandyaha ityukte Panduhu deshaha asya or esham iti Pandyaha. Pandyaha to one who belongs to the country called Pandu. There existed even from Ramayana days and Mahabharata days, you will find this mention here. So it is a very ancient race of kings. And it also coincides with the Sangam thing also, history also, where you talk of the Pandyas being before Pallavas, then you have the Pallavas, again the Pandyas came about, then you have Cholas, they were defeated by the Cholas. This way, so at one point, Pandyadesha must have extended up to the Samudra. Pare Samudram, Samudra Paryantam, Yaha Vartate, Saha Pandyadesha. So now I'll go with everything from the beginning as an Anvaya. So Yaha Deshaha, Agastya Adhyushitam Asham Gataha Api Sarvottaraha. There is a Swarasyam in this part. Agastya Adhyushitam Asham. We all know about the story of how Vindhya Mount is Narada. Everywhere, any kalaham, any problem, we will find Narada's presence, and it always ends in good. It's not about, that he starts off something that cannot be ended or anything. So here, Narada comes and informs Vindhya mountain that, Meru did this, Meru did that and all that. So Vindhya Parvata gets very jealous about it, and he starts growing up and up in order to show that he is much better than Meru. All the gods were all very upset about it, so they went to Vishnu, then Shiva, and then Shiva suggested that you go to Agastya and ask him. Agastya was staying in Kashi. This story is there in Devi Bhagavatam in the 10th skanda, and they come and ask Agastya to take care of this problem. So Agastya is very reluctant to move from Kashi, but still, Devakaryam iti uktva, he also goes to Vindhya Parvatam. And there is one specific section where, the moment Vindhya Parvata sees Agastya, it starts shaking, kampamanaha. He slowly comes down, because this Agastya Urvam, we always say he is Sahatu Kharvaha, Athava Vamana Swarupaha. He is very short. Right? So yet his Kopam is very famous for. Also, this Vindhya mountain was very afraid to see this Rishi come in front of him. So immediately he made his form really small and bowed down to Agastya. Agastya asked him to reduce himself, collapse himself in such a manner that Agastya could climb onto his peaks and go to the other side. He wanted to go to Sri Shailam and other pilgrimage places. So he told Vindhyas that I want to go there. Do not, start growing until I come back. So tatra Devi Bhagavate asti aruhya tasya shikarani avaruhat anukramat. Immediately he went on top of the shikara of Vindhya Parvata and gataha yamya disham. Yamyam, yamasya idam yamyam. Yama is supposed to be in the southern direction. So Yamya Dik is the southern direction. Yamya Disham Chapi, Sri Shailam Prekshya Vartmani. He also went to Sri Shaila on the way and then visited a lot of pilgrimage and decided to make his home in those forests. Okay. So Agastya Adhyushitam Asham Gataha Api. Usually, even if it is in the southern direction, we always say south is Yama's direction, which means it is like a destruction, or you can also say it is below, down, south. They always say in down south. Somehow, there is a illusion in our minds that it is somewhere below. So he uses that illusion here and says Sarvottaraha Sadeshaha. Even though it occupies the direction where Agastya lives. Agastya is a Vamanaswarupaha, even one who is known to be short, and only probably in those places only short people live or something like that. That is a virodha there. And Vamanaswarupa Munina Alankritaha api Sadeshaha Unnata Parimanavan iti Prathamam Vaktum Shakyate. So it is very tall. That Deshaha tu Uttaram iti Shabdasya tu Arthadvayam Vartate. Prathamam tu tatra Aunatya Parimanam Vaktum Shakyate. Anantaram Unnatatvam tu tatra Guneshu Aunatyam api Vaktum Shakyate. So Virodhalankara here, how it operates is Vamanaswarupa Munihi yatra vartate tatra sarvam tu unnata parimanam bhavitum na shaknoti. So it cannot be tall. He is only short. So the desham should also be very short in comparison. The parimanam tatra sarva uttaraha is not unnatam, but you take it as sarvottaraha uttama, as if it is greater than everything else in the world, not in height as such, but in guna. So yaha agastya adhyushitam asham gataha api. Gataha api, the word api indicates virodha. Even though it was present in the direction where this Muni, Agastya Muni was present, yet it was sarvottara, it was tallest in height. So then that doesn't fit there. How can a desham be tall? No. Then you take the meaning of sarva unnatam ityukte guneshu aunatyam tatra svikriyate. Okay, so sarvottaraha sarvebhyaha adhikaha sarvottaraha. Yaha jagati pratitaha, that desham which is pratitaha, which is prasiddhaha, which is known to be in this world as the greatest in this world, even though it is in the southern direction, saha, that kshitehe abharanayamanaha, that ornament of this earth, which extends to the samudram, to the shores of the samudram, pare samudram, saha Pandyadesha hi, that is your Pandyadesha. Okay, Pandya Janapadam. Okay, there is a Vartikam called Pandoho Dyan iti, and he also says in that, he says Dakshina Diksthaha Pandavebhyaha Binnaha. So they have no relation to Pandavas, and this is a desham that exists in the Dakshina Dik, in the southern direction. This is mentioned in one of the Vyakhyanams for Kashika. So Astikshiter Abharanayamanaha Pare Samudram Sahi Pandyadeshaha Asham Agastya Adhyushitam Gatopi Sarvottaro Yo Jagati Pratitaha. Okay, I'll stop with this. If there are any questions, you can ask. 1 minute. Lata ma'am, chulgo. Yeah. You can unmute yourself and ask.
I was just thinking about the Raghuamsham that was mentioned, that Anapodastitaha.
Vindhya.
Vindhyadri Prakrita iva.
Correct. Prakrita viva. Yes. anapodhastitihi, one who did not go beyond its sthiti, its nature. So Vindhya has remained in its own state there. I just wanted to take a reference from the Puranam, which is more, reliable or source, more older. That's all. Yeah. Raman sir?
Yeah, the word Pandya somehow reminded me of the word Panda, and the Pandas meaning the way Buddhi related people who were present in plenty in that desham.
Why not? Definitely possible, because Panda asya asti iti panditaha. So Pandito Medhavi in Upanishad, Pandito Medhavi Gandharaneva Pravishya. A person who is both Panditaha and Medhavi. There is a difference between the two. Panditaha is a person who just has an intellect. Whereas a Medhavi is an Uha-Poha Jnaha, one who can understand how to behave in that particular situation. He should know that also. Otherwise, it's not enough to just have intellect. You have to have the wisdom also.
Yeah. Pandyadesha.
Pandyadesha. Nice. Meena, namaste. Namaste, Mother.
I was reading Mahabharata, and there in the Kurukshetra war, Pandya Sena was also there with the Pandavas.
Yes, correct.
That Pandavas had also fought for them.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
During Rama's coronation,
I think one of the Raja came there.
Cheras and Chola, Pandyas, they were all invited in Gramari Valmiki.
Maybe Cheras and Nyabonla, but definitely Pandyas were there. And for the Rajasuya Yagam of Yudhishthira, also the Pandyas, I think they came. They were invited for that.
I think I mixed up the. Okay.
Madam, Pare Samudram is that means Pandya Desam is prolonged up to Samudra. Is it up to Rameshwaram? Is included, no?
Yes. Irkano. Ana, see, in the Pare Samudram garche, what were the shores of the Samudram at that point of time in Tiriliye?
Tiruchendur ella Pandya nadu chendadane. Adanal. So I think Samudra kare parekkum poi irukkudaru.
Nama.
Appo Meru Malaingiradhu edu actually? What is Meru?
Meru Mala உங்களுக்கு வந்து it's beyond இது
பூமியில இருக்கிறதா அல்ல பூமியில இல்லாம வேற?
Some people say it is not in the bhumi, it is like one, அதாவது ஒரு இந்த pole மாதிரி இருக்கு அது, where everything is, Surya always shines on all directions. There is no astamanam for Meru. Bhagavadatla படிச்சிருக்கோம். அது இருக்கு.
நெதர்லாண்ட்ஸ் ஏதோ சொல்றா. நெதர்லாண்ட்ஸ்ல இருக்கிற ஏரியால மேரு இருக்கு அப்படின்னு.
ஏன்னா நீங்க அகஸ்தியர் மேருடைய பிரதாப இது அதனுடைய இத பிரசம்சையை சொல்றாருங்கிறீங்க இல்லையா? அதனால
நாரதர்
எஸ் நாரதர் சொல்றாருங்கிறப்போ மேரு வந்து தேவியுடைய மகாத்மியத்திலயோ இதுலயோ நிறைய வர மாதிரி
டெஃபினட்டா உண்டு. ஆமா, மேரு மகாத்மியம் உண்டு. அண்ட் த மேரு வந்து அம்பாளுடைய ரெப்ரசன்டேஷனும் அதுதான். இது நமக்கு மேரு வித் தி ஆவரணங்கள், அத மேருன்னு தானே சொல்லுவோம். மேரு பூஜை ரொம்ப வசதி உங்களுக்கு. அதனுடைய ஒரு ரெப்ரசன்டேஷன் நம்ம சின்னதா வந்து மேரு கையில வச்சுட்டு பூஜை பண்றது சாக்தத்துல ரொம்ப ஹை, அதுக்கு இது உண்டு.
பட் ஹிமாலயாஸோட ஒரு பார்ட் இல்ல தானே அது?
இல்ல அது வேற. ஹிமவத் பர்வதம் உங்களுக்கு வந்து தனி, மேருமலை தனி. குலப்பர்வதங்கள்ல அது வேற இது வேற. நிறைய பர்வதங்கள் இருக்கு, அதுல மேருமலையும் ஒண்ணு உங்களுக்கு. மேருக்கு ஒரு ஸ்தானம் வசதி.
விந்தியாஸ் தெரியறது, ஹிமாலயாஸ் தெரியறது, மேரு தெரியல. அது ஏதாவது யோக மார்க்கத்துல அவ பார்க்கிறாளோன்னு எனக்கு மைண்ட்ல அப்படி தோணுது.
ஐடியா இல்ல
அந்த மாதிரி இப்போ என்னமோ.
I am not very familiar. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Vasanta Mahodaya, you can unmute yourself. Namaste.
இது வந்து வசந்தா இல்ல, பஞ்சாபி.
சொல்லுங்க.
நான் ரொம்ப சின்ன வயசுல கேட்டிருக்கிறது என்னன்னா, பிலோ ஸ்ரீலங்கா மேரு பருவதம் எக்ஸ்டெண்ட் பண்ணிட்டு அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவா. அது எவ்வளவு தூரம் ஏன்னா அகஸ்தியர் வந்து அப் டு மேரு போனார் அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவா. தெரிஞ்சுக்கணும்னு ஆசை வந்தது இப்போ.
ஓகே ஓகே, தெரியல எனக்கு. எங்கேயாவது டிஸ்கிரிப்ஷன் இருந்ததுன்னா நான் பார்த்துட்டு சொல்றேன். பாகவதத்துல இருக்கிற வரைக்கும் அதாவது அதனுடைய அது இருக்கிற இடம் வந்து அதை சுத்தி சூரியன் வரா மாதிரி தான். சூரிய சதகத்திலையும் பார்க்கும் பொழுது மேரு பர்வதத்துல என்னைக்குமே சூரியன் வந்து அஸ்தமனமாகாதுங்கிற மாதிரி சொல்றோம். சோ அதுக்கு ஒரு பிசிக்கல் பிரசன்ஸ் கொடுக்க முடியுமான்னு எனக்கு சந்தேகமா இருக்கு மேருக்கு.
அதான் மேடம், இந்த யோக சாஸ்திரத்துல மேரு புத்தி கஷேத்திரமாவும் அதுல சூரியன் ஆத்ம சூரியனாவும் அதுல ஒரு சில இடங்கள்ல ஓம வருது. மேருல சூரியன் உதிக்கிற மாதிரி புத்தி கஷேத்திரத்துல ஆத்ம பிரகாசம்னு சம் ஐடென்டிட்டி ஐ ஹர்ட். எனக்கு எக்ஸாக்டா தெரியல, இருக்கலாம் நான் பார்த்திருக்கேன். அதனால நினைச்சேன். ஓகே.
Yeah, we say there is a one-to-one correspondence between the Jiva and the universe. So everything that is present in the Jiva or the physical body of the Jiva has a correspondence presence in the இருக்கு. இப்ப நம்ம ஹிருதயத்துல எப்போதும் சூரியன், அந்த ஆத்ம சூரியன் இருந்துட்டே இருக்க. அது வந்து one can think of it as a Meru point too. So பிசிக்கலா பார்த்தோம்னாக்கா போல் ஸ்டார் இது
துருவம்,
எர்தனுடைய போல் ஏரியால சன் இஸ் ஆல்வேஸ் 6 months அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவா. உத்தராயணத்தும் போது தட்சிணாயணம் அந்த மாதிரிலாம் சொல்றா இல்லையா? அந்த மாதிரி
பெரியவா ஒரு இதுல வந்து சொல்லிருக்கா. அதாவது if see why is it difficult to believe that the devas stay awake for 6 months and then sleep for 6 months? இது வந்து இப்போ ஐஸ்லாண்ட்லயோ அந்த மாதிரி ஏரியாஸ்ல எல்லாம் உங்களுக்கு வந்து 6 months வெளிச்சம், 6 months இது நைட் அப்படின்னு இருக்கும் இல்லையோ. the sun does not even shine அப்படிங்கிறது if we see it பிரத்யக்ஷமா அப்படி பார்க்கும் பொழுது பாசிபிளி தேவர்கள் அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு ஏரியால இருந்தவாளா கூட இருக்கலாமோ இல்லையோ. ஏன் அப்படி இருக்க முடியாது? இன்னைக்கு நம்ம சயின்ஸ்ல பார்க்கும் பொழுது இட் இஸ் பாசிபிள் இல்லையா அப்படின்னு பெரியவா ஒரு இதுல சொல்லிருக்காங்க.
And then once you ascend in space beyond a certain point from the earth, it is always eternally day or eternally night.
Right.
And Suryan is always seen. Whether you see around and see darkness, Suryan is always there.
சரி. ஓகே, வேற ஏதாவது இருக்கா? If there's nothing else, I'll stop. Next week பார்க்கலாம். Okay, நமஸ்தே.
Thank you, ma.